Sup, y'all, and hello, Huge Cow Patty here, and there's new consoles out. The Xbox Series X and Series S, and I think the PlayStation 5 is out. I'm not really a PlayStation guy, haven't really been following it that much, but I wanted to just make a video and talk about those new consoles, talk about kind of my feelings on the new generation. And then you all can tell me how much I'm wrong and how I need to go sit in the bathtub and kill myself with a toaster. So this is going to be a little bit different from what you have been seeing. Obviously, it's just me here by myself. I'm not going to be doing the salty luchadoric voice. I don't have a script. I'm just talking. By the way, I hope you guys are liking those videos, especially the skits. I've got a few more episodes written. I haven't started production on them yet. My brother's actually coming in to voice a new character, so that's really exciting. But I just got to get him in here in my my quote studio to do that recording. I'm also working on some other things. I have been teaching myself to play first-person shooters with a mouse and keyboard. I'm a console guy. I have never played shooters with a mouse and keyboard, but it's something that I really want to learn how to do. So I've been playing through Halo, which is my favorite first-person shooter, and I've been using a mouse and keyboard, and I think I'm getting pretty alright at it. I was doing a commentary track at the same time, and I was going to share it with you guys, but the first episode, OBS didn't record my microphone. I say that like I'm blaming OBS. It's probably not OBS's fault. It was probably my fault. So I'm still recording the footage. I may wind up doing something with it, but it's cool. I'm really enjoying it, and hopefully I'll get good at it, or at least good enough at it that I feel comfortable hopping into some online matches to play that way. Because, look, I like playing with a controller, and I do really good. I say really good for my skill level using just a controller. But now there's all these people in here that are using a mouse and keyboard. It's a different world, let me tell you. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. I hope you guys are liking it. I hope you're sharing the videos with your friends and family. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get into these new consoles. My first console was an NES. I got it for my birthday when I was 5. I might have been 4. I don't remember. I don't remember what I did yesterday, so I can't really be expected to remember what I was doing when I was 4 years old. I loved that thing. I played Super Mario Brothers so many times. I got so good at it that I could beat the game without dying, and I did it pretty quickly. That actually created a problem for my brother and I, because how Super Mario Brothers 1 worked was Mario got to go, and he went until he died or until he beat the game. And then Luigi would go, and he either went until he died or until he beat the game. Well, since I wasn't dying, I was just beating the game, my brother wouldn't get to play until, I beat the game, which, would take a few minutes, with the warp pipes and everything. And then he would get in, and he would die pretty quickly. And it's not like he sucked at the game. He was younger than me. And remember, I'm 5, maybe, when we have this thing, so he's got to be 3, 4, something like that. So I don't actually know how much older than I am anymore. How much older than I am? Do I English much? So yeah, they caused a problem. We got into fights. My parents wound up selling the NES. They gave us the money, which was cool. But yeah, they sold it. And then in their infinite wisdom, they bought with my brother and I's money. So I guess technically we bought it. They bought us a Super Nintendo. I was kind of surprised that they did this, because I thought after the fights with the NES that they would never let video games be in the house ever again. But they did. And, hey, the selling of the NES apparently worked, because my brother and I didn't fight anymore. That was definitely not a thing that happened. But all that is to say, I've had every Nintendo console that has ever been released. I had the NES, the SNES. I bought the N64 the day it came out. Actually, that story's funny too, because they didn't really do pre-orders back then like they do now. So we bought Super Mario 64 but we couldn't find a console. So we just had the game, but we didn't have a console until like a week later because they were sold out everywhere. But yeah, so then I bought a GameCube after that. A friend of mine had one, and he didn't like it, so I bought it off of him. Had Luigi's Mansion. It's a great little system. I still have it. I actually still have all of my systems. I have, well, except for the NES that I sold. I have a different NES, obviously. And then I have the Super Nintendo, the N64, the GameCube. I had a Wii. I would still have that Wii, except for the disc drive broke. And conveniently, it broke right like the week that the Wii U came out. So I'm like, oh darn, I have to go get a Wii U so I can play my Wii games. So I got a Wii U. Still have that thing. Then, of course, I have a Switch. In 2005, Mountain Dew was doing a contest for Xbox 360. You could win, and every 10 minutes they were giving away an Xbox 360, and the people who won it actually got it a week before it went on sale in stores. So I won one of those. That was pretty cool. That was the first console I ever owned that was not a Nintendo system. And I've been a Microsoft fan. Well, and when I say that, I mean I've been a fan of Halo and Gears of War ever since then. I don't really care about Forza. Forza's Horizon's a lot of fun, but most of it, it's Halo and it's Gears of War. So I've been a Microsoft fan. I've been a Microsoft house and a Nintendo house. Never really been into PlayStation, which is weird because I love JRPGs, but I never got on the PlayStation train. I have a PS2 that somebody gave me. I bought a PlayStation 3 that I never play. In fact, when we moved into this house, I'm 90% certain that my PS3 is still in the box. I don't want to get rid of it. I don't know. I'm kind of weird about, like, oh, even though I don't play this, I just want to keep it because I'm afraid that if I get rid of it, I will regret that I got rid of it, even though I never play it. And I bought a PS4. And I bought a PS4 specifically to play, what was it called? The game where the guy shoots the Infamous Second Son. I love the first Infamous. I have Infamous 2, and for some reason I never played it. But I was like, man, Infamous Second Son is going to be amazing. Bought a PS4. That game was stupid. I hated that game so much. I might rant about how much of a disappointment that game was in a later video, but that's not what I want to focus on here. So the day that GameStop started taking pre-orders for the Switch, I took my PS4 up there, and I'm like, here, I don't want this anymore. They gave me $200 for it because they were running a deal. So I paid $400 for that thing. So I guess, I got half my investment back. That's a good investment, right, Dave Ramsey? Right? Please don't come crashing through my wall. Yeah, so I just never been a PlayStation guy. But I've got an Xbox One, and I liked it. I got it, and I started playing Titanfall. Titanfall is amazing, by the way. Why don't more people play Titanfall? Huh? Why are there not more people playing Titanfall? I'm hoping that now the EA Play is part of Xbox Game Pass, that there will be people playing Titanfall 2. Titanfall 1 has better multiplayer, not gonna lie. But those games are both incredible, and no one plays them. Why? Why are you all playing Call of Duty? Call of Poopy, more like it. The new consoles. They're coming out. The Xbox ones are already out. I think the PlayStation ones are already out. And I don't have one yet. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not really in a big hurry to get one. This is the first time. All that stuff about how I've owned all the Nintendo consoles. And by the way, that goes for the handhelds too. Literally the only Nintendo hardware I've never owned is a Game Boy Pocket and a Virtual Boy. I would love to own a Virtual Boy, mostly just because I like to collect old video games, and I think that is a fascinating piece of video game history. But I've never owned a Virtual Boy, never owned a Game Boy Pocket. That's it. Every other Nintendo hardware, for the life of Nintendo making hardware that plays video games, I have owned a model of it, somewhere. I didn't own the Wii that didn't have GameCube ports, and I don't have the second version of the Super Nintendo. I never had an NES top loader, but like the stuff that matters. You know what I'm talking about because you're watching my channel and you're a smart guy, obviously. So these new consoles are coming out, and I'm just not interested. And it honestly has to do with the transition from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, because the GameCube to the Wii it doesn't really fit in this story that I'm talking about for reasons that we'll get to here in a minute. So we're going to go back to the 80s again. I know I'm all over the timeline, but just be patient. This is going to pay off. I promise you. So we go back to the 80s with the NES. Miyamoto is designing Super Mario Bros. 3, and this is when he gets the idea for Mario to ride some kind of critter. Now, I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with the history to say whether or not that was Yoshi or whether or not it was a dinosaur, but it was some kind of critter. And the NES just could not do it. Now, I'm not a programmer, I'm not an engineer, I don't know how these things work, I just know what I read. And they couldn't get, when Mario needed to sit on the critter, they couldn't get that to work for some reason. So the idea was put aside, and they came back to it for the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World. They added Yoshi, because the Super Nintendo was capable of doing what they wanted to do. So from the NES to the SNES, not only are the graphics prettier, but the system is actually capable of doing something that the NES was not capable of doing that affected gameplay. Some time goes by, the FX chip gets created and used for Star Fox and Stunt Racer FX and Yoshi's Island and probably a bunch of other games. But that was kind of, Nintendo dabbling around with 3D. It wasn't until the N64, though, that we got Super Mario 64 and the big 3D platformer revolution that happened around that. And look, the PlayStation had been out for a little while, and the PlayStation was able to do 3D, but it really wasn't until Mario 64 came out that this idea of the 3D platformer really became a thing. You had games like Tomb Raider with its tank controls and Resident Evil were on the PlayStation, but they weren't doing the things that Nintendo was doing with 3D. They kind of went in a different direction. Both of those directions are important. Don't get me wrong. Wow, that was a train that just does not have anything to do with what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to talk about here is from the Super Nintendo to the N64, we got, yes, the games were, I guess, prettier, depending on who you want to ask about that. I love the way 16-bit sprites look. I think that generation has aged so much better than the early 3D generation, but that's beside the point. Arguably the N64 does look better than the Super Nintendo, but it also introduced new ways to play games. The PlayStation introduced ways to play games that weren't really possible on the Super Nintendo. The N64 or the GameCube, the N64, I am not editing this, by the way. All of that crap is going to still be in there. The N64 introduced new ways to play games that just weren't possible on the Super Nintendo. Then the GameCube comes out. And yes, it looks significantly better than stuff that's on the N64. Same thing with the PlayStation 2 from the PlayStation, and the Dreamcast from the Sega Saturn, and the Xbox. They didn't have a console, but Xbox from everything that came out before that. It looks way prettier, and the benefits that you get in the way games are played is a lot of it has to do with the controller. Sony had a dual analog stick controller for the PlayStation 1, but it didn't come initially with it. Nintendo didn't have a dual analog stick. They only had a single analog stick. The Dreamcast only had a single analog stick, and it's, I guess, kind of part of this generation. But then the Xbox had a dual analog stick, and really Halo, I think, is where we really see this is the new gameplay experience that is now possible on a console at all that really wasn't. We had GoldenEye, we had Perfect Dark on the N64, but it wasn't until that second analog stick got introduced that something like Halo was possible with its twin stick control scheme. Also, the worlds were just so much bigger. So yes, the games looked prettier, but the games also were different. There was a meaningful reason to upgrade to this because there were things happening on the Xbox and on the GameCube and on the PlayStation 2 that just were not possible on the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and even the Dreamcast and the N64. Then the Xbox 360 comes out and the PS3 and the Wii. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Wii and what that means, but I want to focus on the Xbox 360. Because it was, basically it looks prettier kind of a jump. But there's an important piece to that puzzle that's kind of being missed if you only focus on the fact that it looked prettier. Because yes, games were similar-ish. I mean, we had Grand Theft Auto 3 on the PS2. We didn't need an Xbox 360 for Grand Theft Auto 3 to happen. So it's not like the worlds just got bigger or anything like that. It had everything to do with what the system was capable of generating, particularly on camera. And I'm going to use Dead Rising as my example here. Dead Rising, it's not a huge open world game like Grand Theft Auto or Skyrim or anything, but what was important about it was its ability to display 800 unique zombies on screen at one time. That's a lot of zombies, and there's probably a point where you got to think to yourself, 900 zombies is not going to make the game really any different, whether it's 900 or 800, so who cares? But I guarantee you, 800 zombies on screen at once is a different game from, say, 300 zombies on screen at once. And if I'm remembering off the top of my head correctly, and I'm not about to go look it up, I'm just pulling this from memory, and if I'm wrong, you can yell at me in the comments about it. But I'm almost positive that the Wii version of Dead Rising capped out at 300 zombies. And that was a very different gameplay experience. And it was not as good at all. Yes, the Wii version of Dead Rising had other problems, like the motion controls and all the weirdness that came along with the Wii remote. But the biggest thing was the 360 was able to do more because it was more powerful than the Wii was able to do. Now, the Wii did things that the other two systems didn't do, and that's how it differentiated itself from the GameCube. Yeah, Mario Galaxy could have been done on the GameCube. I'm not going to lie. There's no reason in the world that you couldn't have just put that on the GameCube and it would have been fine. But things like WarioWare Smooth Moves couldn't have been done before the Wii came out. As goofy as some people think it is, the sword play in Skyward Sword, I really enjoyed. I kind of said to myself that I never wanted to play another Zelda game without this. Now, I wound up being wrong because Breath of the Wild is freaking amazing and doesn't use that. But it doesn't change the fact that that was good. That was how the Wii kind of entered into the new generation, was because Nintendo said to themselves, this whole the system's just more powerful and the games look prettier. It's starting to kind of lose its momentum. Now, I think they were a little ahead of the curve. I think we're going to see here as I talk and ramble longer that they went down that path way too soon, because obviously the Xbox 360's more power was allowing it to do things that just weren't possible on the Wii. Gonna kind of shift back over to Microsoft. So the Xbox One and then the PS4 are coming out, and I'm all excited. Because here, we got a new console generation. It's going to be great. I'm going to go get one of these things. It's awesome. So, being a Microsoft guy, the first thing I do is I go get an Xbox One. Yeah, I'm excited for the PS4 because I want the infamous Second Son that wound up being a trash game. But, what I'm excited about is the Xbox. So, I get my Xbox One home, and I plug it in, and I got some stupid day one system update that I got to do. But that's fine. This is just the world we live in now, and this is something I got to put up with. And if I don't want to put up with it, I can find a new hobby. And I'm not going to do that, so we're going to put up with it. And I put in a game, and it's just a prettier version of stuff I played on the 360. I paid $500 for a box that's not doing anything that my Xbox 360 isn't already doing. Remember, people, Grand Theft Auto 5 is on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and that whole world loads, and there's no loading once you get into that game. Yeah, if you get a load of cutscene, the screen goes dark and it comes back up and all that stuff, but when you're in the city, there's no loading. The frame rate didn't really dip that I can recall, and if it did, it obviously didn't affect my opinion of the game. That game ran on Xbox 360. I have that game on Xbox 360. I played through that game on Xbox 360. And I get this Xbox One, and I'm like, what am I even looking at? Yes, it's prettier than it looked on the Xbox 360. The PS4 games are prettier than they look on the PlayStation 3. But are you going to tell me that The Last of Us 2 would not have been possible on the PlayStation 3? I don't buy that. No, it probably wouldn't look as good, but the game, like the things that you're doing, the stuff that makes it a game, all that's gonna be the same. The same thing with the Assassin's Creed games, the Batman Arkham games, all Gears of War 5, Halo 5, which if you watch the skit that I put out however long ago that was, you know my opinion of that game. None of this was worth the upgrade. And so now they want me to upgrade again, and they're promising prettier graphics and ray tracing, and I'm not trying to say that these things aren't valuable. Like, I play most of my games, if I'm not playing on the Switch, I play most of my games on PC now, and that's because, like I said before, most of what I'm interested in an Xbox for is Microsoft IP, specifically Halo and Gears of War. Those games are all on PC, and I have a PC that, no, the games aren't gorgeous, because I've got a, what do I got in this thing? A GTX 1050 Ti. That's what I'm running. I'm running a GTX 1050 Ti and some sort of AMD Ryzen processor, and I think I've either got 16 or 32 gigabytes of RAM. Anyway, it's not a monster of a machine, but the games run at a solid frame rate, and I'm enjoying them. And sure, they don't look phenomenal, but they look really stinking good, and it's not taking away from my gameplay experience. So why should I upgrade to a new box if I'm not getting new gameplay experiences? And that's one of the things that I liked about the Wii. I got new gameplay experiences. That was something that I loved about the misunderstood Wii U. That second screen gave me new gameplay experiences that were not possible on the other hardware. Sure, sometimes that gameplay experience is my inventory is displayed on the screen, but you don't have any idea how detracting from a game having to pause to go into your inventory really is until you sit down with a Wii U gamepad in your lap and you're like, I don't have to pause the game to pick a new item in Wind Waker or in Twilight Princess. That's amazing. Metroid Prime aiming with the Wii remote made me never want to play a first-person shooter without a Wii remote ever again. Again, this is something I have to live with unless I want to get a new hobby, and therefore I'm learning to play Halo with a mouse and keyboard because this is just the world that we live in. But those systems brought me new gameplay experiences. The Xbox One did not bring me a new gameplay experience. The PlayStation 4 did not bring me a new gameplay experience. And now I'm being asked to drop $500 on the Xbox Series X, because let's be real here, I'm not going to get a Series S, or $400 on a PlayStation 4, or is that one also $500? I don't know. Again, I don't follow PlayStation. And the only real thing that I'm being told is going to be better is the load times are going to be faster. And I'm not going to lie. I hate sitting down at my Xbox One and putting in Star Wars Battlefront 2 and having enough time between me putting the game in and telling it I want to play and it actually getting into the game to go make a freaking grilled cheese sandwich. It's retarded. I just said retarded, and I'm like, nope, you really shouldn't have said that, because somebody out there is going to get mad. But you know what? I'm not editing this video, so deal with it. It's so retarded how long it takes for a game to load on that underpowered $500 box that I bought. So, again, I'm not saying that these upgrades aren't something that we shouldn't be excited about. And look, if you're excited about it, if you went and got yourself an Xbox Series X or an Xbox Series S or a PlayStation 5, I hope you love the heck out of that thing. And one day, I'm probably going to get a Series X because I like having a way to play games in my living room, and my son really enjoys playing Halo and stuff, and playing that on my PC is just not really... It's not an easy thing to do because then I got to buy 2 copies of the game. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I like having something in my living room that I can play. So I'm not trying to be down on them. I'm not trying to say these things are a giant waste of money and I'm never going to buy one. And I'm not trying to say that you're an idiot if you went out and spent the money to do it. I'm just saying I'm not excited about it. And the reviews that I've been reading on this thing have kind of been reinforcing that idea that I don't need to be excited about these things right now, because I have an Xbox One. Microsoft is going to be supporting the Xbox One for several years, it sounds like. I have my PC that is playing games just fine right now. Microsoft puts all their games on PC. I have a Nintendo Switch. That's my primary gaming platform. I play games on my Nintendo Switch. I've also got my retro consoles, and I'm going through Chrono Trigger right now, and it's a really good time. And so it's just... It's kind of weird for me to be like, we're on the cusp of a new generation, and I just don't care. So, yeah, that's my rant. I hope you liked this video. If you want to see more stuff like this, believe me, this kind of video is going to be way easier for me to make, especially if I don't add my me to it, because, oh my gosh, I've been ranting about this for 27 minutes already. If I did decide I wanted to animate the me, that would take me a very long time. But yeah, if you like this video, if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know down in the comments. Go hit me up on all the other social media. You can find the links for that down below. If you like one kind of video more than another, let me know. I got all kinds of cool stuff that I'm doing. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos. I hope you're enjoying them. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I will see you next time around. Subscribe, please.